Those of you who follow my adventures will know that Gordon and myself explored the coastline all the way from Kirkcudbright to Portpatrick last year. For this adventure we decided to go from Lendalfoot to Portpatrick to join up the dots. Our plan was to launch at Lendalfoot, head for Portpatrick, then camp overnight, perhaps in Loch Ryan, before heading back to Lendalfoot the following day, a distance of around 70 miles. The weather forecast was reasonably stable, with winds from 10 miles per hour gusting to 20 miles per hour over both days. When we arrived at Lendalfoot, I suspected the wind was gusting to 20 miles per hour. I launched the grey Gurnard in a good swell, and it was approaching high tide, so I was happy the cars were going to be fine on the beach. I warmed up my trusty two-stroke outboard as Gordon launched his boat, and then we were off. The wind was now dropping to around 10 miles per hour again, and although we were on a grey sea under a cloudy sky, at least it wasn't raining. I kept in a slow but steady plane to give Gordon time to catch up. I was thoroughly enjoying being on the sea again. Approaching Ballantrae, we decided to pull in behind the harbour wall for a late morning break and to give Sea Pup Fang a sniff around. After a quick sandwich and short stroll, we were back in the water again, still heading south towards the Rhines of Galloway. I couldn't help but notice how dark the sea now looked, presumably because of all the rainwater being washed down the River Stincher, which starts high in the peat bogs above the hills of Galloway. Away in the distant horizon, on the other side of the entrance to Loch Ryan, I could now see the long, low-lying land which is the northern tip of the Rhines of Galloway. and as my dark-coloured wake turned white again, we set a straight-line course for the lighthouse on Corsewall Point. Travelling down the Rhines of Galloway, which is well known for its fast tide races and overfalls. Not that they were noticeable on this calm day. Finally we arrived at the picturesque village of Kirkpatrick, where we landed for a late lunch of sandwiches on the seashore. After a rest and an unnoticed pee in the sea, it was time to head off again, this time heading north back the way we came. My day had started at 4 a.m. for the drive down to Lendalfoot, and approaching Doonan Bay I started to feel a bit tired. I knew there was a couple of sandy bays here, so Gordon and myself agreed to stop and camp for the night. The boats were anchored in the shelter of a small sandy bay as we set up camp on the grass above. After our dinner we took Fang a walk to explore our surroundings. It was quite obvious that rain was on the way, so we returned to camp and had an early night just as the rain started to pour. It was dry when we awoke and we got the boats loaded up as the sea began to pick up. I didn't realise it at the time, but the shelter bay was directly opposite the heavy overfalls of Craiglagan, so we had to take great care to avoid the many rocks in this shallow area. And the bumpy sea didn't help our visibility. Fortunately we got out with no incidents. I went out first, then waited for Gordon as he too ran the gauntlet. Watch carefully and you will just see his head before the boat bobs above the big waves. an invigorating start to our day. After our ride in the races of Rhines of Galloway, we turned into Loch Ryan and landed at Ladies' Bay for a lazy breakfast. Then we had a quick tour around Loch Ryan, keeping well clear of the large wakes caused by the ferries going to Ireland. Then headed happily back to Lendalfoot, another adventure over. Thanks for watching.